Hi everybody, welcome to Glow with Grace. I am super excited today to share an interview with you with a beautiful couple up in the US somewhere called Celeste and Roy. And this amazing couple have so far had 7 unassisted births. They have 7. I don't think I've ever been so excited to talk to anyone. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Angela.
So let's jump into it. I don't even know where to start. I'm like just too excited. I usually have all these questions that I ask mothers about, like their 1 unassisted birth or their 2 unassisted births, and you've got 7. Where shall we begin? Maybe you could tell us first about your children. Well, we know that there's 7 of them. How many girls and how many boys, and what are their ages?
Well, we have 5 girls and 2 boys. Our oldest is 13, and our baby is a year and 10 months. So we have 13, 12, 9, 7, 6, 5, and 1.
Oh, wow. Wow, there was some close together in there.
Yes.
Wow.
Our 4 little girls are basically a year to a year and a half apart.
Wow, oh my goodness. You are just like parenting heroes. It's amazing.
A lot of fun, for sure.
I bet. And you must get this question all the time, and I got to ask it because I'm so curious. Do you feel like you're done, or are there more in the life?
Yeah, we get that question a lot. We feel like we're really happy with our family right now, so we're not planning for more. Mm-hmm. Although, we're not so against it that we would.
We haven't taken any definitive measures that prevent the possibility.
Wow. So
but 7 is a good number.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. So your little boy, Armando, I just watched, you put up a birth video about him on YouTube. So he was born a couple of weeks after Araya, I saw.
Right after Araya. I think they were due pretty close to the same time, but Armando stayed in for a while.
It's amazing to me, like, she's our first child, and they, her and your little boy were born a couple of weeks apart, but you'd already done that 6 times before. I'm like, how do you do that? That's amazing. So did either of you come from larger families? Did you have a lot of siblings?
I have 2 sisters and a brother, so there was 4 of us.
I have 2 sisters, so not especially large family.
Yeah, neither of us came from a big family, but I've always really loved babies from the time I was little, and I knew that I wanted to have a lot of babies.
Wow. And you too, Roy? Did you always want to have a lot of children?
I hadn't, before I met Celeste, I hadn't specifically thought, I want to have a lot of kids. I knew I wanted to have a family, for sure. But I truly didn't imagine it would be this big. But I'm so grateful and happy that it is, because it's really a lot of fun. Our kids are incredible.
Yeah, I watched a couple of your little videos on YouTube this afternoon, and they're so beautiful, your children. They just look like so happy and healthy and just radiant. They're like, I mean, all of you together, you just look like such an amazing example of how families can be. So, yeah. I'm in awe of you all. So I guess let's get into the unassisted birthing questions. What led you guys? I mean, I find it especially interesting because from your very first birth, you guys chose to do natural home unassisted birth, which is pretty unusual in my experience. People often have a kind of other than delightful first birthing experience, and that kind of leads them down a different path. But you guys just jumped into it right from the beginning. So what led you to that choice?
Right, yeah. For me, I had always known that I was going to have my babies at home. I was born at home myself, and I'm very thankful to my parents for blessing me with such a positive image of birth from the time that I was little. And so I knew I was going to have my babies at home, and when we were dating, he liked the idea, and we knew that we were going to do that, but the idea of having them like totally on our own came a little later, when we were expecting our first baby, and I thought about, how are we going to do this, and the thought of, bringing the midwife in that that I didn't know and might not be comfortable with was not something that I felt was right for us. And then we read a couple of books that were really influential.
Yeah, I was actually at a natural food store in Sedona, Arizona, and just kind of browsing around, and a couple of books just jumped out at me. One was Primal Mothering by Hygeia Haffman, and David Wolf's first book. I don't know if it was his first book, but it was Nature's First Law, the Raw Food Diet.
Okay.
And so I just got both of those books and took them home, and that was definitely transformational for both of us. Wow. So we started really seeing the potential of just the natural lifestyle and realizing what's there for us. And we just we knew that's for us. Mm-hmm. We definitely wanted to go that way.
The next book that we read was Laura Shanley's book, The Unassisted Childbirth, and then that one and a few others that we read. There was Unassisted Home Birth and Birth in the Dialogue of Love was another good one. I read many, many books when we were pregnant with our first baby. But those were some of the really most influential ones that made us really just know in our hearts that we were, going to do it on our own and that we could do it. And
right. Yeah, at that time, there wasn't as many people, I guess, that were out in the open about this way, or people like yourselves now are doing such a great, thing for all the rest of us by putting it out there and helping people become aware of the possibilities. And so that's just incredible. It's a good thing.
Yeah, so there wasn't much available back then as far as, I didn't know anybody at that time who had, had their baby on their own. It seemed like such a crazy thing, We waited till the very end to tell our family.
I bet. Did you let people know at all during the pregnancy that that's what you were thinking, like friends or anything?
Our families, we let them know like a few weeks before she was due.
Wow.
I had a lot of people that really wanted to be there, like my mom and friends that were like, call me as soon as you go into labor and I'll be there, and it's really hard to be like, this is, we just want to do it with just us, on our own. And that was kind of a difficult thing to, tell them, when they don't really understand, but we just knew that was right for us.
We just wanted it to be intimate, it's not that we didn't want other people there or anything like that. We just wanted that. It's such a intimate moment, you
know. And so, during that pregnancy, actually during any of the pregnancies, did you kind of have like medical kind of attention along the way? Like, I think you're in Arizona, right? Like, how is it in terms of the law there with like you have to have medical checks, or like is home birth legal? What does that whole thing look like?
Well, home birth is legal, but I saw a doctor for prenatal care, and I didn't tell them of my plans to birth at home. I kind of just stopped going towards the end, and when I felt that everything was fine and just felt confident that I didn't need to go anymore, and that's what we did with the first 3, and with the last 4, I was actually seeing like a certified nurse midwife who I told she knew of that I was going to have the baby on my own, that I've done it before, and so it was. I'm thankful that she was willing to provide prenatal care and be there just in case. But so we did have prenatal care.
Wow. And so talk us through your, actually I want to read this out. I was going to say talk us through your birth, but there was this one paragraph on your website that I just thought was just so classic. I was like, I have to read this out. So I think this just kind of like will give us the overview of how your births have been, and then you can kind of tell us some more of the stories. Okay. Here we go. Our experiences included an extremely long labour, a nearly 10-pound baby, a cord around the neck, a 42.5-week pregnancy, a 43.5-week pregnancy, a couple of water births, a super fast birth that Daddy almost missed, a retained placenta that didn't come out for over 5 hours, a very short umbilical cord, a stillborn that we had to resuscitate for 8 minutes before she took her first breath, a breech baby who was born in the car, and other amazing, crazy, and memorable experiences. Every one of our births turned out wonderfully positive, and all of our children are incredibly healthy and happy. I mean, that's just like, you guys have really been there and done it all. I mean, I've never heard of anybody like you. It's rare these days for people to even have as many children as you have, let alone that they're all like unassisted, home birth, unvaccinated, not going to school, super happy, super healthy. I mean, it's just blow me away. So, so yeah, maybe you could walk us through your births a little bit, starting with that first one back then, 13 years ago.
Okay. Well, our first birth, the major challenge that we faced with that one was that it was an extremely long labor. I went 2 nights without sleeping. Like, I was having contractions. When I went into labor on Sunday night, I was having contractions like 5 minutes apart, and I was unable to sleep. So, I got up and got in the tub and relaxed and whatnot and let him get a little sleep, but, I couldn't sleep. So, I was up all night that first night thinking she was going to be born the next day, I was in labor all the next day, and we about halfway, like in the afternoon, we checked to see, like, if there was any progress with the cervix, and where are we at, and there was still no dilation. And I was very discouraged because I had already been up all night and laboring throughout the day, like active labor, and I'm sure that at this point, if I had been in labor that long in the hospital, that they would have been like, well, we gotta like induce, or we gotta go in for a C-section, or, time to do something.
For sure.
And so that was really the lowest point of my labor. I was like, can I do this? Like, what's wrong? Why am I not dilating? There was thoughts like maybe I should just go to the hospital. And, I just really knew that I could do it. And he really was my strength, and he really brought me, back into it. He said, you can do this. And what really changed things is that I had been walking throughout the labor because that's what seemed to ease the contractions, is to stay moving. And perhaps that was making me too tense or something, because he just said, let's squat together. And when I did that, it was more uncomfortable at first. And so we squat together during the contraction, breathing, and I just stayed squatting for like maybe an hour or so, and just stayed squatting and breathing through the contractions. And that's when labor finally started progressing. And a while later we checked, and I was dilating, and things were moving from that point, and that's where things really turned around. So I was really thankful for him being my strength.
Except for, this was all made more interesting by the fact that she actually lost the mucus plug quite a bit before she went into labor.
Wow.
And so, being that it was our first time, I don't know, how was it, a couple of days before you actually went into labor? And so when that happened, we thought, oh, okay, we're about to have our first baby.
Wow.
And so about any minute now, and nothing was happening. So we're like, well, maybe we should go for a walk. Maybe we'll get things going.
Because walking seemed to bring on the Braxton Hicks contractions.
So we walked for miles. Like, we walked and walked and walked, like, further than we walked, ever. And so she was so sore the next day. And when she actually, she didn't go into labor still, but then when she finally did go into labor, she was so sore. Her legs were so sore. From all this walking.
That was the lesson learned.
So, labor will start when it's ready.
Yeah, so on top of being all tired out from all that walking we did, then I go to have this really long labor. I'm up for 2 nights in a row before she's actually born.
Wow.
When she finally came out, though, like, the moment her head was born, she let out a little cry. Like, she didn't cry, she just kind of went, ah! And, started looking around.
Before she was born all the way.
Yeah, and so she was just so totally alert, and she came out, I mean, the birth was perfect.
Yeah.
No complications, and she was just fantastically healthy baby, strong, and
very alert, and it's beautiful. Yeah.
Wow, I noticed that with the video of your youngest child, who it looked like he came in the water. He just looked so alert and just so present on the pictures on the video there, like from the moment that he was born. It was just so beautiful to see.
Yeah, he was.
All right, so I have an extra bonus question before we hear more birth stories. How did you guys feel about kind of if complications came up? Did you have a backup person? Had you kind of read what to do if blah 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 happens? What did that look like for you guys?
We read a lot of books, and midwifery books, and a lot of books that explained all the different variations and what to look for if something's not right. And my father is very knowledgeable. He took state midwifery tests, and he knew a lot about labor and birth, and so he talked to us a lot, and he said he would be there for backup if we needed to call him if we had a question. And the hospital wasn't very far away. If anything were to come up, that was our backup plan.
Yeah, we figured if it got to that point where something was clearly wrong and beyond our capability to deal with, because it was just so outside of the natural progression of things, well, we would just go to the hospital, but we really didn't foresee that as a likelihood. And of course, there's tons of things that can happen, as we came to find out. But I always knew that if something came up, I just felt that I wanted it to be in my hands. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be the one that had the responsibility of taking care of whatever needed to be done, if that, came into play. Because for the most part, I don't have to do anything. It's Celeste, the mother, that does all the work, and we're just, the dad is just kind of the cheering section. So, yeah, nature has it all set up to work out fine. If certain little things might need a little bit of intervention, not nearly to the degree that happens in hospital generally. So I figured I could handle it.
Beautiful.
And I did study and whatnot, but mostly we just focused on a good outcome.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So inspiring.
I always visualized a positive outcome when I was pregnant. I always visualized the birth that I wanted. I think that's important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah, well, you've got the results to back it up. You've got a tribe of unassistedly birthed amazing little beings. It's amazing. I'm just so in awe of you guys. It's just so inspiring. I just love hearing everything that you're sharing. So, bring us to your next birth story. I believe the next child was a boy, right?
Yes. Our son was a surprise in so many ways. We didn't even realize we were pregnant with him because I was breastfeeding full time. No bottles, no pacifiers, she didn't have anything, and I normally that is enough to keep you from being able to get pregnant again. And so I didn't expect to be pregnant, and I got pregnant again right away. Despite, that she was 100% full-time breastfed.
Wow.
I got pregnant again. And I didn't realize it either for almost 4 months.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think I was probably almost 4 months along when I realized that I was expecting again.
Wow.
And so that was a surprise, and so we didn't really have any idea how far along I was. I wasn't having my monthly cycle, and I figured that was because I was breastfeeding. Right. So we didn't really know when I got pregnant. So when is the baby due? So we had only one prenatal appointment with our second because we didn't have any insurance at that time. So it was we had to pay out of pocket to go see the doctor once and get some testing done, and we just had one checkup to make sure that everything looked good, And so the doctor gave us a estimated date based on my measurement.
Right.
And I actually went into labor a month sooner than the date that she gave us as an approximate date, a whole month sooner. So that totally caught us off guard as well. So this was the shortest pregnancy ever for me, being that I didn't find out till I was 4 months along, and then he was, I went into labor a month before we thought he was due. So that was one.
One of the surprises.
A couple of the surprises that threw us off. And then he was our breech baby.
Oh, man, he went for it with the
and so that surprised us as well.
Wow.
Yeah, being, inexperienced, that it was only our second birth. I could tell something was different, when we would, we'd feel her belly and whatnot. It's like, oh, we could feel his head up towards the top, but didn't realize that's his head. And now clearly, in retrospect, it's like, yeah, that's his head. With that round heart thing up there.
Oh, wow.
And he stayed in the same position through the entire
last couple months. He stayed in the same spot. He didn't want to move. But we didn't know. Looking back, I realized that was his little head right under my ribs the whole time.
Oh, man.
But we didn't realize it at the time. Like, checking for his heartbeat, I could hear it low. And so I figured, that was an indication of being head down. And so, I didn't really have any clue as to, other than, that I should have realized that there was a hard spot up there. But I thought with the heart being low, we figured he was head down. So we weren't expecting him to be breached.
Wow.
Yeah.
He was ready to come out feet first?
He came out bottom first.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, when she was in labor and I checked to her to check things out, and I could tell it's like something feels different, but I just assumed, well, I guess that's his head. I don't know. So, again, now after, all the other ones, you can clearly tell when it's a head, it's like there's a bowling ball down there or something. So, yeah, so it wasn't his head. And, it's interesting.
When it got towards the end where, it was getting close to, like, the pushing, I started feeling the urge to push, but it was kind of a different feeling from my first birth where, my first one, I waited until, I didn't really push. I waited until my body was pushing involuntarily.
And I'm saying, don't push, don't push.
And I'm like, I can't not push. So the second time around, I'm feeling the urge to push, but I'm not like feeling my body pushing myself. I hadn't like got to the point where my body was pushing him out on its own. I guess there's a word for that. For the reflex that your body is going to birth the baby no matter what. And I realize now that is because when in a breech birth, the bottom is it's smaller, and so it starts coming down through the cervix before it's fully dilated.
Wow.
And so that might give you the urge to push before you're fully dilated.
Right.
And, that's something I wasn't aware of at the time, of course not even expecting that him to be breached, and so I kind of just knew that something wasn't quite right because I was feeling the urge to push. And so I pushed a little bit through a couple contractions and I was like, it's just, something's not right. I know that he's not like ready to be born. I could just tell something wasn't quite right. And that's when he checked and he was like kind of confused by what he was feeling up there. Like, I'm not sure,
Wow.
And then we saw meconium.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, and meconium, you always know, like, oh, you see meconium, that's a bad sign.
Right.
Now, in retrospect, in a breech birth, meconium is very, very normal because their little bottom is being pushed down there.
Right.
So that's not actually a cause for alarm. But for us, we're like, wait, what's going on? And I had, I was already feeling like something wasn't quite right. And so at that point, we were like, okay, something's going on. We don't know what. We don't understand what's going on. But maybe the baby might be in distress since we saw meconium. And so we thought, well, we better head to the hospital.
Right.
They're just like, oh, not the hospital.
Yeah.
And so we decided to head for the hospital. We got in the car. I'm I could not sit in a seat at all.
Right.
And so I had to squat in between the front seat and the dashboard. And we're driving to the hospital, and you know, I'm just praying that he's okay, you know, that my baby's okay, and that everything will be fine. And you know, just like, you know, I was just like, I couldn't believe that we were going to the hospital, and I was just like so like afraid of like what was going to happen when we got there, but I didn't really think of it at the time. I was just like, everything's going to be okay, you know, everything's going to be okay. And so, you know, we get to the, like, well, actually, I didn't really know where we were because I wasn't aware of, like, you know, how close we were to the hospital or anything. And, you know, all of a sudden I, like, feel that, you know, I'm having another contraction, and I feel that he's moving down, and I'm like, you know, I told him, you know, the baby's coming. You gotta pull over.
She's like, the baby's coming, and I literally was pulling into the parking lot of the hospital, and pulled into the parking lot, and I look over and I see his butt coming out, and that's when I realized, I was like, it's his butt. And so we just kind of pulled over to the side, and we were maybe 30 feet from the emergency room doors, and I had actually called on the way in there, too, and told them we were coming, because I'm like, okay, we need to make sure this goes as efficient as possible, and I'm like, I called them, and I was like, we're coming, she's in birth, and something's possibly wrong, we're going to be there in a few minutes, please be ready, and so they're expecting us, but we pulled in, and just pulled over, and like I said, his little bottom was coming out at that point, so I just jumped out, ran around to the other side of the car, and
yeah, I was so surprised, you know, when I looked down and I see his little bottom and hit back, you know, it was like, oh, you know, like all of a sudden it like dawned up, he's great. And so, you know, Roy came around to the other side of the car and opened up the door and supported his body as he was being born, and he was born to his head, and then there was a pause, and it wasn't long, you know, he wasn't there very long, and then his head was born, and it was just like that, and he was born, and it was just like,
such a relief.
We didn't have to go to the hospital after all.
I mean, well, yeah, when he was birthed, because the whole time driving there, you know, of course I'm fearing the worst. I'm like, oh no, my baby, you know, I hope he's okay. And as soon as I ran around and he was coming out, and I put my hands on him, I could feel his heart beating. And it was beating so hard, I could just feel it throbbing in his body. And it was that instant, I was like, oh, he's alive. And I knew everything was good.
Wow.
And yeah, once he was born, he didn't breathe right away. I had to give him a couple of puffs of air. And then he's, you know, coughed a little bit and started breathing. And so I put him on Celeste, and pretty soon he started nursing. And it was like, everything's fantastic. And I'm looking, the emergency room doors are right there. So I'm thinking any second they're going to come out with the gurney and like we have to get in. And so once he was, you know, there, and I could see he was good, and we were like, let's get out of here.
We looked around and we're like, does anybody realize that we just delivered a baby in the parking lot?
Nobody saw anything. I couldn't believe it. I thought any second now it's going to be mass confusion and chaos.
This is about like 10:30. He was born at 10:30 at night. So it was dark. But yeah, we were right there. Not far from the emergency room door.
That's hilarious.
It was like, once I could see that he was just beautiful, he was perfect, everything was fine, that it was like, I'm not gonna go in the hospital. You know, they're gonna take him away from me, they're gonna do all kinds of stuff to him, and so we just decided, well, let's just go home. We don't need to go to the hospital anymore. And so, we pulled out of the hospital, and we pulled across the street into the parking lot, and he's like, well, let me just check you out, make sure that you're okay and everything before we leave. And, you know, no tears, nothing. He was a 9-pound baby.
9-pound breech and no
9
tearing.
pound and breech.
Wow.
No tear.
Crazy.
Everything was beautifully perfect.
Amazing.
So we got the heck out of there, and they called a little while after, and they're like, "Hey, where are you guys? What happened?" And so we actually just told her. I said, it was a false alarm.
Oh,
It was scary. We thought she was in labor.
We didn't want them sending anyone over or anything, so we were just like, "Don't worry about it."
Wow.
This is the best thing to do. I mean, gosh, it's craziness, but that's what we did.
Wow. You must have been so relieved after that. What a relief.
Very relieved. It was, we thought that everything was going wrong. We thought, that we were going to have to go to the hospital, that we were going to have a hospital birth, and we didn't know if he was going to be okay and everything like that. And then, he was born and everything was perfect.
We realized it would have been just fine. We would have just stayed at home.
Yeah. But wow. So your first daughter was like a year old when he arrived?
Right.
They're almost exactly a year apart.
Oh, a year and 12 days.
Wow. And what was she doing during this whole breech birthing debacle?
Well, originally I had thought that I wanted her with us and that I wanted her to be there so she wouldn't be confused as to why all of a sudden the baby appeared, But she was really too young to talk to or explain anything to, and so kind of at the last minute when I was in labor, we decided to let her go with grandma, and so that was probably the best thing to do since it would have been kind of crazy with all of our adventure. So yeah, she was with grandma.
Got it.
With all of our other births, the other kids went home.
Oh yeah, really? Wow. So they've all been there. They've all seen births.
Yeah, well, pretty much. I mean, with our last birth, our youngest 3 stayed sleeping, and they were too tired to wake up because he was born in the middle of the night. And they had really, really wanted to see the baby before, but we couldn't wake them up. They were too tired. So.
Wow. Okay. So what happened next? What was the next birth story after that?
So, our baby number 3, Sky, she was, everything went really well with her. The only difference with her, I guess, was that she was our biggest baby. She was almost 10 pounds. She was 9 pounds, 10 ounces. And, she was only 3 days past our approximate due date, so she wasn't really late or anything. But she was just a big baby. And, so that birth was a little bit more painful. But I think a lot of that too was that I was a little more stressed out at the end of her birth. I didn't realize that she was I was already in transition, and I felt like everything was happening too fast, and I was getting stressed out, and I all the stress and tension that I was having, because I felt like everything was happening too fast. That's what caused me so more pain in her birth. More so even than I think that she was big, because my breech baby, he was 9 pounds, and even being in that stressful situation, I don't recall that being as painful as her birth. So, but I think it was just more of a state of time. But
she had the cord around her neck too when she started coming out, which was I saw and I unwrapped it, but one of my sisters, I always heard growing up, she had the cord, or the doctor said she had the cord around her neck, so we have to do an emergency cesarean, and they took my mom in, and it was a complete disaster, botched job, and My mom almost died. My sister almost died. They both needed blood transfusions, and all of this stuff based off of, well, the cord was around him, so we had to do it. And so when I saw that, you know, she came out and the cord was around her neck, immediately I was like, oh no, disaster. And I was like, no, it's not. And I just unwrapped it. And so, like, wow, that was difficult.
Wow. Wow. How many, was it like tightly wrapped around? Like,
well, it was a couple of times around.
wow.
But I realized, you know, thinking about it, it's like the baby, it's not getting strangled. They're not breathing through their mouth or their nose. They're getting oxygen through the cord. And, you know, the cord's not pinched off when they're breathing. It doesn't matter if it's around their neck.
Right.
It is. As long as the blood is flowing, everything's fine. So it came unwrapped fairly easily, and then she was born. Not so easily. But
yeah, I mean, there was like more of a pause after her head was born. That like, you know, like with my first, it was like her head was born, and then her body just turned and she lived right out. You know, it was just like, you know, and with my third baby, Celeste, her head was born, and it was like, okay, is she stuck? Did she turn yet? You know, like, and she was, you know, 9 pounds to ounces, so I'm like, you know, get this baby out, you know, so I was just like, you know, I just pushed, and, you know, she was born, and, but, you know, there was more of like a pause, you know, before her body was born.
it's some effort.
Wow.
But no tearing or anything disastrous.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I might have had very, very minor, like, surface tearing, but, you know, nothing major at all with her.
Amazing. So I got another extra bonus question for you. I'm sure people are wondering, I mean, you're so, like, tiny, slim yourself. You had 7 children. I mean, people are going to be like, what? How did she have 7 children, especially like 9, 10-pound babies? And it seems like, you know, you haven't really torn much. Like, your body seems to be like really handling all of this really well. What kind of like lifestyle do you have? What kind of things do you eat? Like, what do you do to take care of your body? Because it seems like you're doing a really good job.
Well, thank you. Well, you know, I always try to be, you know, very healthy. We're very health conscious. You know, we've always eaten a, you know, majority of a raw food diet, although we're not 100%. Although, I mean, we've gone 100% raw, like, at times, but we haven't stuck to it.
Then there's always pizza, the shredded pizza.
But I mean, we do eat very healthy. You know, we're very health conscious. We you know, lots of fruits and vegetables and salads and that, and you know, we stay active and I don't know. People ask me like, "How do you stay so thin?" I don't know.
Yeah. As you know, the diet is it's everything. You know, really, I guess it's not everything, but it's such a fundamental thing. If you get that good, everything else kind of flows very easily. Your brain's working better, and you're feeling better, and everything is better.
Eating as close to nature, you know, as close to nature is intended, does that possible.
And are you guys like vegan, vegetarian? Do you eat some meat, fish, animal products? How does that look for you?
We do eat some meat and fish on occasion, although, like, for the most part, you know, we just mostly eat raw fruits and vegetables when we're home, but we always tend to, like, make exceptions for special occasions and whatnot, but, you know, we always try to, you know, just make what we have available in the house just healthy, the most healthy food.
Your children just look so healthy. They just look so vibrant. It's like, sometimes you see people with like 1 or 2 healthy looking children, but you just have like this pack of children that they just glow. They're so amazing looking. And they're all unvaccinated, right? How has it been with their health?
They've all been very healthy, I feel like, we're very blessed, and, it's very important to be healthy and to make sure your kids eat healthy
I feel so bad for people and for children, especially when I see kids that are sick, a lot, they have earaches. Had chronic ear infections when I was a child and had to get ear tubes put in and stuff. And I realize, now, seeing how healthy our children are, just because of eating the way nature intended, they don't have any of those issues. And, they don't ever need to go to the doctor. They don't need to take any drugs or pills or medications. And they don't get sick. Every once in a while, they've gotten a little cold or something. Usually, like, after Halloween coming up here, we let them have their sugar, and then it's like, but they're starting to realize it's like, no, if you eat a lot of that, what's going to happen, and it does. And, a few days later, they're all, it's a clear connection, and with, if you eat right, you don't have those problems, and it's so much better. It's like life is so much easier.
Right. Well, you guys are clearly doing something very right. Okay, so we got 4 more births to get through. Tell us your next one.
Do we have time?
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, our 4th baby was our really fast labor, and really fast, really easy. It was just like really amazing. I kind of had a feeling that, I was in pretty early labor, that day, but, I was kind of like, because with our 3rd baby, her labor was like on and off, kind of like, I felt like I was having contractions, and then I actually went to bed, and then they slowed down the next morning. So it's kind of like start and stop, like. So when I was feeling like I might be going into labor, I wasn't really sure, and I thought it might take a long time. And he had a gig that night. He was playing music at a club, and I was like, oh, it's going to be a long time. Go ahead and go,
Oh, wow.
And so I was feeling fine, and just having some mild contractions, and my friend came, and she was headed out of town, and she was moving, and so my best friend was moving, so I'm just visiting with her, and I told her I think I'm in labor, and she's like, really? You don't look like you're in labor. And so I visited with her for a while before she headed out of town. And after she left, I was like, oh wow, I feel like the contractions are getting stronger. Maybe I should call Roy and tell him he better come home. I thought, and then I'm like, oh well, no, I want to finish tidying up. So I'm dusting, and I'm like thinking that it's still going to be a while, and then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, wait a second, this is going, I can tell, I can just tell it's like going a lot faster than I thought. And so, I called him up, and, not like really realizing how far, progressed I was, I called him up, I said, I think you should come home. And then like, while I'm on the phone with him, walking around, I'm like feeling the baby's head like pressing down. I'm like, you really got to get home like right now.
Oh man.
And so he's like, okay, I'm coming. And so I'm like, just like hoping he gets here in time, because I was like really feeling like this baby's like really like right there. And, I'm just like hoping he gets there in time. And I'm like breathing through the contractions, and he finally gets there, And I get in the shower and I'm like, okay, you know, it's already time, you know. And I get in the shower and I shower off and then I get out and I come into the living room and it was like, boom, you know, I was ready to push her out right there. She was, you know, she was born just like that, like 5 minutes after he got home.
Yeah. I walked in the door and it was like, all right, let's do this. And bam.
He made it just in time.
Wow.
Like I was like trying to hold it back, you know, like like she's right there.
Wow.
So yeah, that was just like really, her birth was really fast and
nice,
really beautiful.
All right, number 5.
Baby number 5 was our most scary experience. She had a very extremely short cord, which, you know, we had an ultrasound with her, and you know that they didn't detect that. So, you know, when it came to pushing, you know, like I was feeling like the urge to push and everything, but it felt like she wasn't, like it was hard to push her out. And she was my smallest baby. Labor with her started different than all the others. I was like almost a week before the due date and my water broke. And none of my other babies, the water always broke like right before they were born. With her, like my water broke. Like I wasn't in labor, you know, it was like a week before she was due, my water broke. I'm like, wow, you know, this is different. And I didn't go into labor right away. It was like probably like 12 hours after my water broke before finally started going into labor.
Wow.
So that was different about her. So she was my earliest baby and my smallest baby. But when it came to pushing, it felt like it was hard to push her out, and I kind of felt like something wasn't right with her, and like that I needed to get her out. And whereas normally I feel like it's best to wait until your body is pushing the baby out. Like you shouldn't have to like push your baby out, you know. All that push in the hospital, you know, like so unnecessary. If you wait until your body is ready, your body can push the baby out really without, you know, you can't even stop it at some point, you know, the baby's gonna be born. But like with her, I kind of just felt like I needed to get her out, and so I pushed, you know, and she was finally born, and she was totally white and limp and lifeless, like you know, she just like wasn't there, you know, and you know, we waited a minute, we rubbed her, and she didn't take her first breath until her baby. And it was our most scary experience. And, you know, thankfully, you know, he's been trained in CPR, and so he began resuscitation.
Yeah, once I realized it's like, you know, I'm holding her and I'm rubbing her, and it's like, a minute now, she's gonna cough or something. Like she said, she was totally white and limp. And so, I don't know, maybe we waited a minute or so, and then
I gave her like a minute, and then we could see that she wasn't responsive at all, you know.
And so I was like, all right, you better do something. Yeah, this isn't normal.
He listened for her heartbeat, and like it was like.
Yeah, I put my ear to her chest, and I could hear her heart was beating, but it was like maybe 3 seconds between beats, like it like just barely. And I was like, okay, she's alive. And so I knew her heart's beating, so I didn't want to do chest compression because it can damage the heart. So she just needed air. So I started, and I knew, thankfully, that because I've been trained, you can't blow too hard because you can really hurt a newborn's lungs. they just, they have tiny little lungs. So I'm blowing puffs in her mouth, and it's coming out of her nose, and then I realized, oh no, you have to cover the mouth and the nose. And so I'm, and then I'm trying to position her head right, and it's not nearly.
And she was like right there, because her cord was so short, she couldn't be lifted from, she's right on my side. And we weren't going to cut the cord, in case there might have been any oxygen she was still getting, of course.
Yeah.
So, we were trying to do all this with her, like, right there.
Yeah, I'm trying to move her. When you train, they have these dummies that you use to blow the air in, and it's fair, you blow and the air goes in. It's not like that. It's like, you had to keep trying and just finding just the right angle, and then finally I could feel the air is going in, and her, her chest was rising a little bit. And so I started just breathing for her, and take a breath and breathe, and take a breath and breathe, and take a breath and breathe. And this went on and on and on. It was like 8 minutes, which seemed like an eternity. It's just breathing, and the whole time I'm just putting all my energy and focus just, come alive, come back. And I just kept breathing. At one point I just stopped and looked up, and I was like, oh, please. This can't happen. This can't happen. She has to live. And
I was just holding her hand and telling her, I love her, and just sending her with all my love and telling her, she has to be okay. And there was like this fear, that we were going to lose her, but at the same time, I just really felt that I just wouldn't let myself believe that was possible. I just felt like I knew she had to be okay. And it was like the longest 8 minutes of my whole life, trying to revive her. And finally she coughed a little and let out a cry, and it just, It was like, wow, she's here, and she came back, and she started crying and moving and
she picked up, and she was back. Everything is good.
Oh my goodness.
It's kind of interesting thing too. We had decided with this birth to film it, because we thought, wow, let's film it. Maybe this would be cool. Let's get on film. And we had no idea that it was going to be that.
Wow.
That's how we know it was 8 minutes, because at the time we had no idea. I wasn't looking at the clock.
It was only looking back. We were like, we were like, looking back at the video, we realized how long it was happening. And my mother and my sister were there at that time too, and they were just holding their breath, and my mom was like, should I call, 911, or no, just wait, she's gonna be okay. She was, and it was just like, the most, like, thankful moment of my whole life, And,
she's totally perfect. She's very intelligent, happy, healthy, just like all the others. While we were buried, she couldn't be brain damaged or something.
Yeah. So there's that worry, being that she went that long before she was on her own. Is she going to be okay? In the long run, but she's perfect, and she's so smart, and she's like reading at a level far advanced from her age, and she's really amazing girl. So blessed that she didn't leave us to that time.
Thank goodness that you didn't cut the cord. I mean, I can imagine if you were in a hospital setting, the cord would already have been cut, and then she wouldn't have had any oxygen supply. I mean, wow. I mean, you guys have faith. You really have faith. Oh my goodness. You've been through it all. That's just amazing. I can't imagine the gratitude and the just relief and celebration that you must have felt at that moment. And I imagine you just really carry that with you through your life.
Absolutely. You know, and like you said about the hospital, I hate to be like discouraged. You know, who am I to say what's right or wrong? Don't go to the hospital. But the reality of the situation is, I'm certain that if that would have been a hospital birth, she would have died. Because, like you said, they instantly cut the cord, which immediately deprives the baby of a good portion of the blood that's supposed to go in the baby. And they do it every time without fail, as though it's an emergency. They cut this cord now.
Especially when the baby's in distress, they feel like it's even more urgent to cut the cord, you know, like so they can go like give her oxygen and stuff. That and she may have not had very much oxygen even coming through the cord because her cord was so short. I kind of feel that her placenta had to initially separate in order for her to even be born. I feel like that was what was holding her back, why it felt difficult to push her out. And so I kind of feel like maybe the placenta was separating and she was already losing oxygen, which is why she was born, the way she was. And I kind of feel like that's probably a pretty rare complication, Mm-hmm. I really haven't heard about it, much with anybody, having such a short cord that it would, cause that. But they didn't identify it with ultrasound or anything, and so I don't really know that they would. There's not really any better outcome we could have hoped for.
I know, it's as perfect as could be, because in a hospital that would have been a cesarean without question. Yeah. No question. And here she is. She's alive and healthy and fantastically happy, and Celeste is still fully intact, and everything turned out beautifully. I mean, things can work out in amazing ways if you allow them.
Even when faced with abnormal circumstances, like having a very short cord, which is very unusual. Right. I think that's probably the only true complication that we face.
Amazing.
Probably not normal. That doesn't happen very often.
Right. Wow. All right. Number 6.
Wow. So, yeah, we were a little scared to have a baby after that.
My goodness.
But, no, I mean, when we were expecting our baby, when we had the ultrasound, I was really got to check her cord. Make sure that she has her cord is normal length and everything. And they checked it, of course, and yeah, she was totally fine. And so her pregnancy was beautiful, perfect, easy. Everything was fine. Even despite that, I had my last 4 girls very close together, so my 6th baby was, very close behind the 3 before her. But the pregnancy went great, and the only thing is that she went 2.5 weeks past her approximate due date, and when I went in to see the certified nurse midwife that I was seeing, she was like, "Oh my goodness, you're still pregnant! You gotta get this baby out." And I had no intentions of inducing or anything, but I realized later that she stripped my membranes without my nuts, and I immediately went into labor after my appointment.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And this was at 42.5 weeks, so she was, 2.5 weeks past, overdue, supposedly. So anyways, I went into labor. I suppose it was probably a little premature for, her because, there was that intervention that I was, not aware of. And, if I had it to do over again, I would not allow any internal examinations or, I would not allow that to happen again. But she was our first water birth, and it was a really good experience. The water was very, very, very relaxing, and it was just like amazing how much my body relaxed when I got into the water. And so it was a really amazing experience. Yeah. Everything was pretty straightforward. Her cord was wrapped around her neck once, but she unlooped it and came out, and she actually had like part of the membrane still when she was born, but it kind of came off as she was born. But that was a little bit different. She was our first water baby.
Yeah, I'm interested in that. How come you hadn't come to water birth before that? You just hadn't heard of it, or how did that happen?
Well, I had heard of it before, but I was kind of apprehensive. I was like, I don't know, that doesn't really seem good. And I just never looked into it really, never really researched it further. And when I was pregnant with her, the idea it's like dawning on me, well, maybe I should, try the water when I labor with her and see how it goes. And a friend of mine had all of the babies in the water, and was like, this is really good. She told me about her experiences, and so, we decided to have a water birth. So,
wow.
Really well.
So everything was good with that one, despite the kind of unnatural
yeah,
stuff.
despite, but she was probably induced.
Wow.
She did have a slight meconium in her water, but she was fine. She was perfect.
Yeah.
All right, number 7.
Number 7. He was, everything was perfect with his pregnancy and everything. We reached the 40 weeks, and we knew that he might be late since our last one was 42.5 weeks late, and may have even gone longer than that, but we really weren't prepared for how long he was really going to wait. When we got to 43 weeks, we were just like, what? How much longer can this go on? And it was really emotionally challenging for me to just have a lot of pressure from everybody being like, why haven't you had the baby yet? And I was seeing a certified nurse midwife, and when we went to the 43-week appointment, she was like, I respect your decision to wait, but unfortunately, I'm working under a doctor, and our policy or whatever is, I can no longer see you after this point because you refuse to be induced, and we're just like, well, we really feel like that he's going to come when he's ready, and that, we don't need to induce, and that everything's fine. And we went ahead and had a non-stress test done on the baby, put a little thing around his belly and monitored his heart rate, and they saw that he was fine and everything. And so, I really knew that everything was fine with him, and that, I really knew that I just needed to trust in my body and know that he would come when he was ready and when I was ready. when I finally just like let go of like the like stress that I was feeling, I finally went into labor like that day that I like really like was just like, you know, like it's fine. Whenever he wants to come, it's fine. And then I finally went into labor.
Yeah, it was stressful only because, of course, we're 40 weeks on. The midwife is like, well, you know, you're late now. You shouldn't do this. You know, the baby doesn't come. You need to get the baby out. And they start telling you all the horrible things that can happen if the baby stays in too long. And there really is not a lot of stories that we could find. Because as we got into 42 weeks and 43 weeks, and we're thinking, wow, it's okay. I mean, it's going to be all right. And we're looking for other people who've been through it, and we finally were able to find a couple, but we had to search pretty hard, you know, because we wanted to see that somebody had done this and that it's still okay. You know?
It's like, do babies ever really stay in this long? You know, like, you don't really know because, you know, doctors don't let mothers go past 42 weeks. So there's nobody, you know, out there that, you know, nobody's out there that said, you know, like, my baby was 43 weeks. It was really hard to, you know, find other people who have had babies that late. And so, you know, it was good to, you know, research into that farther and realize that, you know, the length of pregnancy varies a lot, and that it's normal, you know, it's everything can be just fine, and his placenta was fine. There was no calcification that they talk about, you know, that the placenta is going to start calcifying and it's not going to function. His placenta was perfect, and he was perfect, and he was 9 pounds, so he was a little on the big side, but, you know, I had my 9-pound, 10-ounce baby. She was born only 2 days after her, you know, due date. And so, you know, he was 3.5 weeks, and so, you know, he wasn't even as big as her. So it's not like they just keep getting bigger and bigger. Yeah, he wasn't even our biggest baby. So, you know, he was in 43.5 weeks. You know,
wow,
everything was perfect.
And he came into water as well, right?
Yes, another water birth.
One thing that I felt a little bit of stress that he was in the water. I mean, I know the baby doesn't normally breathe until it comes out, but when his head was born, like our last baby with Ariana, she kind of just slid right out and moved her out of the water, and, you know, all kind of its own motion. With him, his head was birthed, and he kind of stalled there for a minute, and
like our third baby, it was like
big.
He was on the big side, and so his head was born, and he stayed there for approximately a minute before, you know, his body was actually born. So it was kind of made me uncomfortable too, that, you know, that he's like underwater, and that, like, why hasn't he turned yet? And, you know, in that minute that seems a lot longer when you're in the moment, you know, it was like, you know, perhaps it may have been better if I had been out of the water. I think now, because being that he was a big baby, I think that I could have benefited from having more gravity to assist in his birth. You know, because being in the water, you're without gravity, which makes it easier in a lot of ways, but in some certain circumstances, like, you know, with him stalling it, you know, being just his head born, like, you know, maybe if I wasn't in the water, that maybe that would have went faster.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember back to our first birth when Serena, as soon as her head came out, she started,
She opened her eyes,
so she's
like,
already,
right away.
Yeah. So she's already breathing, and she's not even born all the way. So I'm thinking, oh, what if he's trying to take a breath and he can't? He's under the water. So it was kind of a little bit like, I don't know if this is okay. And he finally came out and everything was fine, you know, because it wasn't that long. And he's still getting air through the cord. But I don't know, I think, obviously I don't feel what birth feels like, but maybe, you know, in the water for the labor part, I clearly thought that's really good, you know.
Right.
I don't know, maybe it might be best to step out when the baby's actually born. Sometimes, I don't know, how can you know it in advance?
Right.
Yeah.
But it all turned out fantastically perfect with the game.
Wow. Amazing. What stories. Just absolutely incredible. And I know you guys are actually, you're writing a book about all this, right? I saw on your website today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's that looking? How's it coming along?
It's been a work in progress, really. I mean, like, since our first baby was born, and after she was born, I started writing her first story, and I just, you know, I felt like her birth experience was so amazing and so empowering, you know, that I just felt like, you know, I need to share the story, and, you know, with every birth that feeling through, and, you know, we haven't really yet, you know, until now, you know, sharing our stories now, but I felt like that's something that we should do.
Certainly, because we found ourselves looking for, you know, people who've gone through similar things, so that we can feel some strength that, okay, this is going to be okay. This can be okay.
Somebody else has experienced this before, and so you can, you know, it helps to know when somebody else is, when you see somebody else that's done it before, you know, it helps to, you know, build your confidence.
So when do you think the book's going to be out?
Our plan is before the end of the year.
Before the what?
Before the end of the year.
Woo! Wow, it's already on the way.
Yeah.
So that means
excited.
Nice. Well, I have so many more questions for you guys that, I mean, my brain is just buzzing. So I hope I can interview you again at some point, maybe like when the book comes out, so we can let people know about that. But for now, I will obviously put the link to your website down below, and let's just say it now so people can hear it as well. It's heartsintohands.webs.com. It's down below. You can click down there and you'll see it as well. And it's just beautiful. It has like a little bit of background on this guy's family and some pictures, and the video about baby Armando, like about his birth. You can see that, and like go through to their YouTube. Yeah, check that out. And I for one am really, really excited to see your book. I hope we can carry it on our website if you make it like in a, actually it doesn't matter if it's an ebook or like a physical book. I hope we can help you guys to put that out there, because I think that would just be amazing to share with people.
Well, that would be awesome. Definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, I guess we've got to wrap up for now. Maybe I can ask one more question for now, and then I just got to wait until next time. So if anyone's watching this and maybe they're pregnant or they're thinking of having a baby at some point, and they're thinking about, well, maybe I would want to birth unassisted, what kind of guidance would you give to someone like that based on all of your experience? What would you suggest to them in terms of preparing for an unassisted birth?
I would say that, reading and research as much as possible, but for the most part, you have to go within and decide, you know, if this is a responsibility that you want to take on, and if this is what feels true to you. You know, if someone feels a lot of fear about birth, you know, that, you know, if they're really afraid, that's not going to be a good, you know, manifest into a good experience, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It all begins within yourself. If you really feel it and you need to feel good about what you're doing in order to create that good experience. That's like number one. And so when you do read and research the books of people who've done it and had success, are telling you everything that can go right. If you go into the medical books and the standard, obstetrics and whatnot, the entire book is about everything that can go wrong. And that's probably not the best way to to visualize the outcome that you're looking for yourself and for the baby.
Yeah, I wouldn't advise spending too much time focusing on all the complications. Although, being aware, of certain, signs to look for, I think is good, but not to spend so much time, focusing and thinking about all the things that can go wrong. Be prepared, but be in a good state of mind at the same time.
And think about your baby, because the experience is everything it is for you, and at the same time, the baby is going through this experience, and it's a conscious, fragile being. It's coming into the world and going through this incredible transformation. And as the parents, it's our job to love that baby and protect it and make that transformation as gentle and beautiful and loving as possible. Yeah. That's the goal. No trauma.
Beautiful. Thank you, guys. This has just been so absolutely beautiful to me and just inspiring and educational, and I'm sure everyone has loved it. And I really hope I can talk to you again at some point if you're open to it.
Oh, absolutely. Please do. Thank you so much for having us and giving us this opportunity.
Absolutely. I'm thrilled. I'm so delighted to be able to share these stories with the world. And I said to you at the beginning before we started to film, I feel like there's got to be like a documentary crew come and film you guys. Like, this is amazing, to share with people. So I'm really excited for your book to come out.
You're the documentary crew.
Yeah, maybe, we've got to get some press coverage for you guys and get people hearing about it. But for now, thank you, and I'm very happy to story this way, and I'm sure everyone's really enjoyed it, and I hope to speak to you again sometime. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you. You're welcome.